Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lipinski.
And I'm Doug Cannon.
On this week's show, we look for Jonathan Quick, and we find him in the back of the net with a puck.
Well, you know, it doesn't get any better than playoff hockey, and we have a lot to discuss. And we will also look at the woes of Edmonton one more time.
Just one more time. All that, plus a breakdown of every series so far. Let's drop the puck on episode 37. Well, Doug, here we are. We're about a week into the NHL playoffs, give or take a day or three.
I would say a weekend.
Okay, we're going to go a weekend. Nobody's out yet.
Nobody's done.
Tampa Bay is close.
Close. And they're like the closest.
And they haven't even looked that bad. But Montreal, I'll tell you what, we'll get to our predictions here in a second. We were pretty spot on. Now, granted, it's a weekend and nobody's advanced, but our early returns are looking pretty good. But it is episode 37, and that, of course, can only mean one thing.
Back to the silly game.
Don't hate the game.
I didn't hate the game.
Hate the player.
Okay.
Number 37, who you got?
Oh, I have multiple.
Oh, well, I have one. So hopefully you don't have.
Well, because you have one, I'll let you go first.
Ole the goalie. Olaf Kolzig. Vezina Trophy winner. The only Vezina Trophy winner to ever win and wear number 37 at the same time. So take that.
Trevor Kidd.
Did not win a Vezina Trophy. Had a great mask, though. Remember his mask? Had the dragon coming up the side?
12 years, 901 save percentage, 2.84 goals against.
That's not only the goalie material.
Only the goalie's overrated.
Way to take a stand.
Okay, so my pick was Eric Desjardins.
You just like his name.
Plus, he was a defenseman.
Shocking. You found a defenseman in a goalie jersey number. You found a defenseman.
18 years, man.
We could fire up the Blackhawk fans and say
one more for
Torres.
you. I got one more for you.
Rafi?
No.
No.
I got one more for you. He's still playing. He's actually in the playoffs.
No. Who you got?
Patrice Bergeron.
Patrice Bergeron is better than all of these guys. Why aren't we talking about Patrice Bergeron?
That was one of my multiple picks.
Patrice Bergeron playing last year in the Stanley Cup with he had like a broken rib.
Right.
No lungs.
Nose was all lacerated.
This year he's playing with like a virus. Yeah, never mind. Bergeron wins. That's not even close.
All right.
Way to bury the lead there.
Thank you.
So on to the playoffs.
I like surprises.
That's a good one. I should have thought of that. I don't know why I didn't. Eastern Conference, let's start there.
But my picks were solid.
They were. That might be the best you've ever played that game. You still lost, but it's the best you've ever played. It's progress for you.
We're getting there.
You're like Tampa Bay.
Oof.
You pick the series. Let's just start with Tampa Bay. We keep talking about them.
All right, let's go right to the Montreal series.
I don't remember who you picked.
Oh, I do, because I wrote it down.
Montreal in 6, right?
No. I actually took Montreal in 7.
Okay.
You took them in 6.
But we were both pretty adamant that Montreal is underrated, which they
Correct.
are.
Yes, they are very underrated.
Not in
team.
Montreal, but we can't understand them anyway because they're speaking French. But I guarantee you they're talking about how great Montreal is.
Oh, yeah.
But just kind of on a national scale, you don't hear that much about them. They could make a really nice run.
I had a conversation with somebody today about this team, and I'm like, they're like, well, they didn't have Ben Bishop. And I said, but let's look at Montreal. Montreal's got better defense. Montreal has a proven solid goaltender.
Yeah.
And they have firepower up front. I said, this team has been flying under the radar all season long, and all they've done is work hard and work hard and work hard, and now they're up 3-0.
It's weird to say they're flying under the radar, but I keep saying it too. I mean, they're the only Canadian team in the playoffs, so I'm sure north of the border it's just constant Montreal talk. But their goalie just won a gold medal for Canada.
Thank you very much.
Goals against average was under 0.6 for the entire tournament. You have that combination, and we kind of touched on this last week, but they've got goal scorers, Max Pacioretty, Thomas Plekanec. I mean, they've got other guys that can score. Solid defense with Subban and Andrei Markov. And a couple
by the way, Subban scores too.
Yeah, he also does that. And then the sort of goaltender that could just win you a series.
Right.
So Montreal is extremely dangerous.
Well, I believe that. I've always believed that. And we talked about this a little while ago too. It's like, even to today, Montreal being in the playoffs, being up 3-0 over Tampa Bay in the first round, I still can't get through my head why there was contract problems in signing PK Subban.
Yeah.
I just and the year before he won the Norris.
Yeah. I don't know what more you can do as a defenseman than win the Norris. Well, he won it the year they had the contract issues.
Right.
That was how he was like, oh, you make me wait, I win the Norris.
Right.
They're a good team, and I don't know. What do you think of Tampa Bay so far? Steven Stamkos had that goal in Game 1 that was pretty nasty.
The goal was beautiful. I mean, it was a beautiful play. It's typical Stamkos. You and I have discussed it off before we started recording. The play actually happened in the neutral zone where Stamkos, because he is the player that he is, little chip off the boards, the defender doesn't know what to do, and he's gone. And it just comes down the wing, top of the face-off circle, and bye-bye.
It had everything. I mean, not every NHL player could even pull that goal off. I mean, it was a set play for him to take the puck, everybody standing still, carries it length of the ice, and then buries the shot.
Coast to coast, yeah. But, again, you and I talked about it last time. Is he enough?
Well, I think watching this series, I've noticed a couple of things. One, they didn't have Ben Bishop, so I don't know how you could have ever picked Tampa Bay. You can't lose your starting goalie, who's a potential Vezina finalist 2 games before the end of the season, and expect to really win against a good team. But more than that, when I watch the series, I think that this is almost like the start of a new era of Tampa Bay hockey, and that they've been in the playoffs before, although not last year. But they've never been there when it's just been Stamkos' team. There's always been LeCavier. There's always been Martin St. Louis. I mean, this is just Stamkos' team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because this team actually this year has gone through a lot of turmoil. They were actually doing very well at the beginning of the season. Stamkos goes down. Then the Olympics come along. Steve Yzerman decides not to pick Martin St. Louis for Team Canada. Then you got all that brouhaha in the media, and from people I talked to, it filtered into the locker room.
How could it not?
Right?
Yeah.
And so then St. Louis gets traded.
Because he wants to get traded.
Well, he's not happy. I mean, so then he gets traded and Stamkos comes back, and we're at this point. And you're right. It's Steven Stamkos' team. Unfortunately, the team was pretty much handed to him as the playoffs start.
Yeah, and the one player that they were able to absorb the loss of maybe the best goal scorer in the NHL, certainly one of the top 2 or 3, when he went down for 40-plus games. They were able to absorb losing their captain to a trade, but you can't absorb losing your goalie at this time of year. You just can't. We see it with so many teams.
But I watched St. Louis in his first playoff game.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Well, let's transition over there, shall we? New York, Philadelphia. The series that, to me, and I believe I said this last week, is guaranteed to go 7 games.
It has to go 7 games. There's no way that this series doesn't go 7 games.
So we're 2 games in. Obviously, it's tied. And
1-1.
It looks like it's going to go 7 games. The Rangers always go 7 games, so maybe that's why I think that. But these 2 teams are evenly matched, but their strengths are in different areas. And so it just kind of seems like it's just primed to go 7. And Philadelphia bounces back with a win in Game 2. Ray Emery looks pretty good in net. Steve Mason came out after the game, who was hurt, and said, even if I was ready, which I'm not, why would you go away from Ray Emery the way he's playing right now?
Well, you can't. I mean, we've talked about this a gazillion times on the show. If your goalie's hot, you ride him. You have to. You absolutely have to until he comes to you and says, I need a break.
Is there a reason that this series, I'm intrigued, I've watched both games, but it's the least, I don't know, for some reason I'm not into this series as much as the other 7, and I know this is the one you're into the most. Right?
Just because I know it's going to be toe-to-toe.
When we get to Game 7, I'll be very into it. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I've watched every second of both games.
Okay, so we're not talking West right now, but on the other side of the coast, you've got the Sharks L.A.
Yeah.
Here in the East, you've got New York and Philly. To me, those 2 things are similar at the beginning before anything started, and they've both, one's proven me right and one's proven me wrong. But this series has just got so much in it. Ray Emery in the first game looked shaky to me.
Oh, yeah.
Very shaky. And in watching the first game, I'm like, oh.
He didn't get a ton of help in that first game, though, either. You got to remember, Game 1 was 1-1.
Just kind of like their season, right?
Going into the third. Well, yeah. But, I mean, they were taking dumb penalties in front of them, and the Rangers cashed in with a couple power play goals and ended up running away with that game, but it was 1-1 in the third.
Right.
So that's where we are in that series. The Flyers, as we record this, I guess, have the momentum because they won Game 2 and
took away home ice.
Got a little offense.
Right? Who had home ice in that? Am I right?
Rangers had home ice. Yep.
So now Philly takes home ice, and they go to Philly.
Shall we slide over to Boston, Detroit?
I think I just missed something there, and I don't know what it is.
In Boston, Detroit?
No, in the Philly Rangers game.
Well, that's good. As long as you think about it after the podcast when we can't say anything, that'll be perfect.
It'll come to me.
We can tweet it out on the show page.
Yeah, we'll go. Hey, guess what?
It's just
Doug remembers.
You just want to get to the Pittsburgh-Columbus series. That's why we're.
Oh boy!
But Boston-Detroit. Detroit comes out with just a nasty goal by Pavel Datsyuk in Game 1 and wins Game 1 1-0. And I go back to the Pittsburgh-Boston.
Why do you think that
series
happened
last year? Why do I think that happened?
Yeah.
Because he's one of the best players in the world. You've been doubting Detroit all year. Everybody's doubting Detroit in this series. And don't get me wrong, I have Boston winning the Stanley Cup if I have to pick right now, but it would not shock me in the least if Detroit won this series.
I didn't think Boston would play as poorly as they did in that first game.
But that's Detroit. Detroit makes you play their game in the playoffs. They just do. And Boston came back in Game 2 and totally imposed their will and cruised to a 4-1 win, but and Jimmy Howard comes out, gets a shutout in Game 1. That's kind of how you have to beat Boston. You've got to beat them 1-0 or 2-1.
Oh yeah, you can't let their machine roll.
And you can't.
There's no way.
You can't try and get into a run and gun situation because you're not going to score that many goals on Tuukka Rask. You're just not.
Right.
So I thought it was interesting. Detroit was able to come out there and do that. I saw an interview with Mike Babcock before they knew who they were going to play, and it was apparent that it was going to be Boston or Pittsburgh in the first round for Detroit. And he sat there and really detailed how each team is very tough, but how his team could adjust to play each one. And you hear that guy talk about strategy, and I was surprised how candid he was, just putting out there, what his team would have to do against either one of those opponents. And you realize, he's one of the very best coaches.
Well, he's very confident in himself. Yes,
he is. Don't get all choked up about it.
No, but that's how I see Mike Babcock. He's going to give you, well, this is how we'll play this team, and this is how we'll play that team, and we'll win.
But, would you be shocked if Detroit adjusts, comes out, and wins Game 3 on home ice?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't you pick Boston in 6?
No, I picked Boston in 5.
Oh.
You picked them in 6.
Okay. I wanted to go with 7, but I didn't. All right, here we go. Pittsburgh-Columbus. Where do you want to start?
I think that Columbus is showing us Columbus. That sounds like a stupid statement, but
no,
because it was a stupid statement. But
it doesn't just sound like one, folks. It is.
It's a young, hungry team, and they're playing like a young, hungry team, and they're being very physical
and young and hungry.
Yes, they're a young, hungry team.
They're
playing physical.
26 hits at one point in the first period tonight. We're recording this. I don't know what day it is, but it's after Game 3 of that series. That one's been a weird first 3 games.
The greatest thing that anybody can do against a skilled team
is shoot the puck on Marc-Andre Fleury and see what he does.
Well, that's another story.
Okay.
But if you're physical with them and slow them down a little bit with a physical presence, most skilled guys don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
They don't like it. They want that room. They want to skate. And I think these young guys in Columbus are very hungry. They're very talented, and they're bringing the body. And Pittsburgh's like, wait a minute.
Well, each of the first 3 games, a team has been up 3-1, and that team has lost each game so far.
That's a great stat.
I do what I can for you.
Wow, that's a jewel.
I like to bring a good stat to every show, and usually I forget to use it. As we've said before on this podcast, Pittsburgh is one of
As our friend Bob Hidos will say, that's a great nugget.
It's a solid nugget. So,
I think that name dropping, huh?
Well, you're always about raising your prestige level at any cost. So I think I detailed this in the very first episode of this show ever. You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. I have the Penguins and I have the Coyotes. Mm-hmm. When the Coyotes succeed, I'm happy for them, and when they lose, I'm like, I will get them next time. Mm-hmm. When the Penguins fail, I get very angry. That's just the way it is.
Because that's been your team since birth.
No, but it's more than that. If you're a Penguins fan, you will understand. If you're a legit Penguins fan, like you've been following them.
Oh, by the way, I've seen enough Penguins hats today.
What about this one?
Between you and my son.
I got a new one the other day.
Oh, boy.
I'll bring it next time.
Okay.
If you were a legitimate Penguins fan, you didn't just jump on board when they got Crosby. You sat through about 15 years of awful. You really did. Ever since the end of Lemieux, I guess maybe
I'm a Toronto fan. Don't talk to me about awful.
We'll get to your team in a second. Okay. But so then you get Crosby and you get Fleury with a first-round pick, and then you get Malkin and you build this team and you win the Stanley Cup in 2009, and then it's just been disappointment ever since. That's why I get angry watching the Penguins. Just disappointment. They won tonight, and I'm angry.
I had a conversation with somebody because we watched the first 2 goals go in tonight.
Oh, they were great shots.
And we're like, That's Marc-Andre Fleury in a nutshell.
It really
He'll
is.
give you 82 solid games in the regular season. He'll step into the second game or a third game of a playoff series and watch the puck travel over his shoulder into the back of the net.
I said this to somebody and then tweeted it out at Luke Lipinski. Columbus played this game tonight like it was a playoff game they had to have, and unfortunately for Pittsburgh, so did Marc-Andre Fleury, which means he just lets shots go in that aren't even shots.
I read that tweet while I was on my account at Doug Cannon Jr.
Oh, shameless. Okay. Who else's account would you be on? The shots in that game, mind you, a game that Pittsburgh was losing 3-1 in the third period, were 41-20. Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Penguins have 0 goals from Malkin, Crosby, Neal, Kunitz. All their goals are coming from Brooks Orpik and Matt Niskanen.
We had a brief conversation before we started recording, and that doesn't surprise me. Now,
4 guys?
come on. Now, we expect guys like Crosby, Malkin to score. But then again, from a strategic standpoint, if I'm the opposing coach, I'm putting pressure on those guys. I'm shadowing those guys. I've assigned a player, and his only duty is to watch that player so that he doesn't score, which in effect would let lines 3 and 4 the ability to have more opportunities to score, because the guy that's covering Crosby or covering Malkin is getting double shifted, and the lower end guys are doing your scoring. So who's doing the scoring right now?
Well, it's Matt. It's all defense. It's essentially all defense. And I hear what you're saying, but on that team, if you can stop Crosby, more power to you. If you can stop Crosby and Malkin, that's great, but then that should mean Chris Kunitz and James Neal score goals.
There is the only place that I'll agree with your argument, because if the pressure is on Malkin and Crosby and they're being shadowed, then secondary guys like Neal and Kunitz should be scoring.
Well, Crosby now has gone 8 playoff games without a goal in a row. The whole team, as you recall, against Boston last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, the whole team scored 2 goals. So we're now 3 games into this series. Malkin had 0 goals against Boston. James Neal had 0 goals against Boston. They have 0 in this series, too. At a certain point, something's got to give, right? I mean, if this team, can you imagine if they lose in the first round and these guys don't score? They're going to have to change something. They're legitimately
trade them.
You're not going to trade any of those guys, but you can't tell me if Pittsburgh loses in the first round of Columbus, there aren't going to be changes.
Yeah, Mr. Shiro will probably be looking for a job.
I don't know. I don't know what they do. I mean, they're up 2-1 in the series, so I guess.
I think you're panicking.
This isn't panic. This is me being calm.
I think you're panicking.
Well, I'm trying to make your point that it's frustrating for a skilled team to get kind of. They don't look like they're having fun at all. I mean, They really don't.
Skill guys are usually big babies.
Okay.
And they don't like the physical play. They really don't. They like to do what they do. Back in the day, the skill guy, he had a guy on his own team assigned to him. So if there was a guy assigned to him to slow him down, he had to deal with his bodyguard.
Okay.
Right?
Back in the day. The 80s.
You don't have that anymore. You don't have the quote, end quote, air quotes, enforcer to protect your skill guy or to keep the gnats away from your skill guy. Your skill guys one-on-one. I watched the other night. They were hammering 87 in the corners.
Well, they have to. But then somebody else has to step up and score. It shouldn't have to be Lee Stempniak.
But in the day, if you hit my 87 or my wink, wink, nudge, nudge 99, you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in today's game.
Unwritten rule.
But it doesn't happen.
But don't you think there's something to the theory, and this isn't just the Penguins, this goes beyond. I mean, we see this every year. There's a team or 2 teams that is just, they're used to scoring. We see it in Ovechkin a lot, actually. He's probably the best example. And when he's not scoring, it's almost like you're driving this really expensive Lamborghini and you're stopping at a red light every 20 feet. I mean, that's what it's like. And then it just kind of works against itself.
And then because you have a high-performance engine that you're stopping every mile, the engine starts to bog down because it's not performing at the RPM it's supposed to be performing at.
That was beautiful. Well done. I believe we've cracked the code. I don't know which code, but we have cracked some sort of code.
We need RPMs.
You're listening to The Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Segment 2, Western Conference. I believe, Doug, we are seeing the very definition of how quickly the playoffs can change for a team, no matter how good you look with one injury. And we got a couple examples of that here, and we'll start with the one that will probably irritate you more. Then we'll get to the one where I'll probably offend somebody. So let's at least get through this series before I offend somebody. Colorado, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
The Avalanche looked great in the first 2 games. And actually, I made this point to somebody the other day, too, but it wasn't on the air, so I'm going to make it again. You realize if this was Premier League soccer, Colorado would have been relegated to a lower league last year.
Right.
And instead, they're like a Stanley Cup contender this year.
But even in Game 3, which was played today, I thought Colorado looked awesome.
Semyon Varlamov made 45 saves.
And we talked about that. I mean, goaltending will take you a long, long way.
They're playing without Matt Duchene.
Hold that thought, which we didn't discuss in the Pittsburgh-Columbus series. Bobrovsky is phenomenal. There, I said it. We'll come back to Colorado, Minnesota.
Well, he had a bit of a hiccup tonight, though. Pittsburgh scored on 3 straight shots. But that goes back to what we said last week.
But that goes to what's out in front of them, too.
That's true. And it goes back to what we said last week. You pick the team that has a variety of different ways they can win. Columbus can only win if Bobrovsky is on his game.
Correct.
So Colorado has shown they can win a few different ways. They won without Matt Duchene in the first 2 games. Part of that's because Nathan McKinnon has...
Yeah, we have an 18-year-old that's tearing it up in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
And you said last week when we did this show and we made predictions, and I believe I had Colorado in 7 in this series. But either way, you flat out said there's going to be a lot of responsibility that falls on Nathan McKinnon. Can he step up? And actually, that was my wild card player, so maybe I'm the one that should be taking the credit for this. But regardless, 7 points.
You said 7, I said Colorado in 6.
Yeah. Okay, but 7 points by McKinnon in the first 2 games.
Right.
Minnesota.
Oh, he's on my fantasy team.
Yeah, I know. It's just a matter of time. Ilya Bryzgalov gets pulled in Game 2, and Darcy Kemper
He was
gets
seeing
the start.
tigers.
All the tigers in the universe. And that's the stage for tonight. Minnesota wins on a really nice goal in overtime by Michael Granlund. It's just an excellent solo effort.
That's just like second effort, third effort, fourth effort goal. It was a pretty goal. It was all hard work. Those are the best.
Great crowd in Minnesota. Just great atmosphere.
Oh, yeah. It's a hockey town.
They peppered Varlamov. They finally get one past him. But this is where the series could feasibly take a turn. Tyson Barrie gets hurt in this game.
Mm-hmm.
You can describe the injury, but the end result is an MCL injury, and he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So there you go.
Tyson Barrie's carrying the puck up the wing, and guess who's there to meet him at the blue line? That guy, didn't he play for Pittsburgh?
And they got rid of him
Smart
because
move.
of plays like this.
Matt Cook, knee on knee, just takes the dude out. Bad potty position, and he did the thing that infuriates me the most, and I don't care what level of hockey it is, when any player goes and he puts his hands to his side like, what did I do?
Well, their best defenseman, one of their best defensemen was just laying on the ice, so he did something.
You know he's guilty.
Yeah.
You know it was a knee-on-knee hit. He didn't even try to take the body. His leg was out. He took out his left knee. And then Tyson Barrie gets up and takes himself off the ice. Now, There's the difference between hockey and any other sport. That's a brutal injury that hurts like no other. That just hurts. There was an adjective I can't use.
Hurts to watch. I'm watching it again right now. I don't know why I'm watching this again.
And he stands up.
I watched it again.
He stands up and skates off.
And says, I'm done. And then skates off.
And then skates off.
Yeah.
But this kid... His stats, regular season stats, 64 games, 38 points, a plus-minus of 17. Do you think he's going to be missed in the playoffs?
Yeah, and this is my point I made off the air to you. Not like I think Minnesota just sent Matt Cook out there to do Matt Cook things.
Matt Cook just does Matt Cook things.
Now, give him the credit, and this hurts to give him credit right now, but the last 2 or 3 years he hasn't done anything. But that doesn't justify this, and he's got a history, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of discipline
you're in the playoffs, and emotions are cranked. It was bound to happen.
But if Minnesota loses Matt Cook,
hold that thought.
Who cares?
What about earlier in the game when Matt Cook was stirring it up?
Well, that is Matt Cook.
Him and Matt Talbot were going toe-to-toe.
I don't care if he stirs things up. I don't want him injuring players. And I look at this play over and over again.
That's a very good point. That's a perfect way to put it. Stirring it up's one thing, but hurting somebody, not acceptable.
This series is a little less good without Tyson Barrie in it. And we're talking about a 22-year-old that you read off his stats, and I know you're a little more passionate just because he's a defenseman, but He's played 106 career NHL games. So we're talking a rising potential star for Colorado. He's out for at least this series and next series and probably even the series after that if Colorado goes that far. And I don't know what Cook's going to get, but I just keep looking at the play. And I know you can look at it and you can say it's knee to knee. That's definitely wrong, and it is. There are plays where it's knee to knee, and it's a guy trying to go for a hit and at the last second just wants to kind of obstruct his guy going by. That wasn't this. I mean, Cook, at best case, it's just laziness.
Well, exactly, because, I mean, Barrie had the outside lane coming up the boards. Cook had the inside lane. He didn't even try to go towards the boards. He stayed right where he was, leg on leg. And it upsets me because there's no room in the game for that kind of hit.
You can't.
You could have stepped up and just hit him.
Yeah, and you know what I'm saying, right? Let's say he did step up to hit him, and Barrie makes a nice move to get around him. Then at that point, you just got to kind of say, okay, I'm beat on this. Doesn't mean they're going to score. Turn around and get back up the ice. You can't then stick your leg out and be like, oh, this will slow him down. It's not going to slow him down. It's going to end his season.
Right.
And we see it consistently.
That's why we do stops and starts in the game. You stop, you start. The guy gets by you, stop, turn your direction, and go. The hockey's all about transition. It's all about offense, defense, offense. It's all about transition. And if a guy gets by you, you make the transition and you go get him. But he was in a position, even if he took a parallel path, so it was left knee on left knee. He did not even try to angle to go in on the angle and stop him. He didn't even try to reach out and stick on puck to try to knock the puck off the stick. It was a deliberate hit, and then he did what's me? What'd I do?
Can you imagine if you were a ref? how different the world would be. I think rain would go up. Black would be white. Cats and dogs would be best friends.
So I think in this case, there's a suspension coming, and Matt Cook's history will follow him.
Well, we have a nice reference point for what that suspension might be, courtesy of Brent Seabrook, who decided to launch himself into David Backes' head in Game 2.
Well, launch is not a good word.
He landed after the hit.
His foot was on the ice. His right foot was on the ice
yes,
when
that's how he was launching.
No. It was a bad hit. It was a bad decision, and he should have got suspended for it because it was all head. That hit was all head. I'll argue the launching. I don't think he launched off.
But either way, he targeted the head.
He targeted the head. That is undisputable. You can watch the replay over and over again. He took out Backes' head. Now, here we go again. In any other sport, this does not happen. Backes gets knocked out, falls to the ice, scrum develops, players defending their player. Backes stands up and goes, "Where's the truck that just hit me?"
Ready to fight.
I am ready to go. He can't stand. He's wobbling on his legs, and he's looking for the guy that just hit him. And he stayed on his feet. And I'm like, no other sport is as tough as hockey.
This is why people that don't even watch hockey necessarily watch the playoffs, because these guys reach just unreal levels of toughness, and also it's just fun to watch just the games themselves, and they've been great so far this year.
The intensity is phenomenal.
Here's my problem with this play on a couple different levels. First of all, it forced me to, I guess it didn't force me, this is on me. Don't ever read the comments on the internet. I believe I've made this point before. It's tough to respect Blackhawks fans after what I read of, well, he wasn't targeting his head. My personal favorite was David Backes took a dive. Okay. I don't care at all about St. Louis.
That was not written. Somebody actually took the time to write that.
And then you're like, Hawks fan 973. I was like, oh, okay, well, at least you're impartial. So St. Louis loses David Backes. Now I get the Brent Seabrook is a big deal to Chicago, but by virtue of injury, Chicago may come back and win the series. St. Louis doesn't have their captain.
Right.
I don't really like if you come up to me and you say, okay, you're a Blues fan, you lose your captain, but they lose Brent Seabrook. No, I want my team captain. St. Louis lost out on this.
On a different level, and because we're close to it, the Phoenix Coyotes lost their captain in a series.
Yeah.
Against Detroit.
Just a freak play, but yeah.
It was a freak play. It wasn't anything as bad as this. Well, it was because Shane Doan got injured, but...
This is a couple years ago.
But the team lost their captain. It made all the difference in the world. You can play as hard as you want, and you can have as much pride as you want, but sometimes a key player like that, especially somebody like a Shane Doan that's so strong in the locker room, and Backes is the same thing for St. Louis, I think you're right. This is the type of injury that can just change this whole series because St. Louis was on a roll. They were up 2-0 going into tonight's game, and Chicago comes out with a win tonight.
And St. Louis doesn't even score.
Right.
And so just to piggyback on that, I feel like if you're a team, I don't want to say Chicago could afford to lose Taves because he's such a good skill player too. But if you're a team that's won the Cup or you've gone deep before, you've got enough experience in that locker room where if you lost your captain for a few games in the playoffs, you could kind of adjust. St. Louis, they've had no playoff success recently,
yeah.
So this group has never had playoff success. They need David Backes, and they don't have him. And it was weird. I mean, at the time in that game, it looked like Chicago was going to win Game 2. It seemed like this play rallied St. Louis, and they came back and got the win in Game 2. And Game 1 was great, triple overtime. We didn't even touch on that. But I don't know. I could absolutely see this turning in Chicago's favor, and it's a shame if it's because of that play.
Yeah, it was an ugly hit, and Seabrook has been punished for it. So
3 games.
We'll just wait and see.
So what do you think Cook gets if Seabrook got 3 for that? Seabrook had no prior history.
Cook has history. He's going to get 4 to 5.
Cook has a book of history. I don't think he'll get more than 2.
You really think so?
Yeah, 2 or 3, maybe 3 because of the prior history.
It was a deliberate hit, though. I mean,
but he didn't target the head, and that's
but
more the focus though for suspension seems to be on the head.
Yeah, but man, you take out a guy's knee, he could be done permanently.
Right? I'm not defending it.
Oof.
Colorado and Minnesota we already did. Anaheim, Dallas.
Yeah, welcome back.
Whatever. Maybe I was still going to make a point. I'm not. But if you haven't seen the Michael Granlund goal, you need to go watch that. That's the best.
That was
that's
a pretty goal.
Going to be the best overtime goal of these playoffs. Maybe. Anaheim, Dallas. It looks like I was trying to wait on this series because this is the one game that's still going on right now. But Dallas is up 3-0 in the third.
Well, it smells like a Dallas win.
So let's assume Dallas picks up a victory. That series will be 2-1.
I was listening to Sirius XM earlier tonight. It was actually the first period of the Ducks-Stars game. And I was listening to the Ducks broadcast and Steve Carroll. And Steve hit it on the head. He's like, right from the start of the opening faceoff, he's like, the Ducks need to score, and they need to score early.
Which they still haven't done because we have 5 minutes left in the third as we record this.
But his point was he needed to take that crowd. The Ducks needed to take that crowd out because that crowd was hopped up, man. They were ready for that game. And Dallas gave the fans the first goal, and the fans haven't let up. And I think, with 5 minutes left, the Ducks might score a goal or 2, but I think Dallas has got this one. So this series is going to go 2-1.
You get in that position when we look at the 4 games that took place tonight. Minnesota, if they lost tonight, they would have been down 3-0. That would have been it. But this was their first home game in the playoffs this year. They came out, got a win. They completely outshot Colorado in that game, and they had 46 shots. It was a 1-0 game because of Varlamov. Chicago, first game at home in these playoffs, they feed off the crowd, they get a win. Columbus fed off the crowd. They scored 2 goals in the first 4 minutes. They just let Pittsburgh
I think that's inexperience.
It has to be.
Pittsburgh's guys aren't scoring right now, but that whole team as a whole has a ton of experience. The Blue Jackets don't have that.
And Pittsburgh scored in that game with a second left in the second period. That changes everything, too.
That's a huge at any level, when you score with, I would say, a minute and under in a period going into the locker room, that momentum swing is huge.
You just believe you can – you don't believe, like, you're going to run out of time because you scored with a second left. You can push it down to the final second.
Right, and now you got 20 minutes in front of you.
But Dallas is going to beat Anaheim tonight. That series is going to be 2-1. In this game, Stefan Robidas fractured leg. If you haven't watched the video, don't watch the video. Ryan Garbutt is just trying to make a play, ends up sliding down the ice face first, takes out his former teammate, and it's ugly. So I would assume fractured leg. He's a hockey player. Maybe he came back tonight. I don't know, but he's probably out for the playoffs. So that, again, that's another big injury to watch. We've seen 3 now in the Western Conference in the last 48 hours. But Anaheim still looks pretty solid.
Okay, so now the series that's shocked the heck out of me.
Yeah, I'm mad at you for this because you convinced me to switch my San Jose pick to L.A. last week on the show.
Well, yeah, we both went L.A. in 7. I don't think that's happening.
I think San Jose, and I know you think I'm crazy, I really think San Jose could go to the Stanley Cup this year. I really, truly do. I don't know that they will, but what have you seen from the Sharks all season? Take the last 10 years out when they choke in the playoffs every year, it seems like. Take all those out. Why wouldn't San Jose go to the Stanley Cup?
Well, I told you when Toronto did a West Coast swing, I watched Toronto play Anaheim, and I watched Toronto play San Jose. San Jose and Anaheim look like machines.
And San Jose didn't have Thomas Hertl when that happened.
No, he was still on the injured list. So I'm really, really shocked that LA didn't start quick in Game 1.
I don't know what – it hasn't looked like Jonathan Quick at all. He's given up 12 goals in 2 games.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So
I'm shocked they didn't pull him in Game 2.
Right.
He was in there for – okay, so if you missed Game 2, if you've watched LA in years past, they'll get beat in the playoffs. You know, and they got beat up in Game 1. Then they come back and they grind out a 1-0 or 2-0 or 2-1 win in the next game. And it looked like that was going to happen. They went up 2-0, and then San Jose scored 7 goals in a row.
I think the difference here is that Anaheim and San Jose, not only are they skilled teams, but they're big and physical teams. So my theory on the Columbus-Pittsburgh series, where Columbus is being a little bit more physical with the skilled guys on Pittsburgh, might hold a little bit of water, but that theory doesn't apply to San Jose and Anaheim because they can dish it.
They're almost a hybrid.
A Ryan Getzlaf can hit you. A Joe Thornton can hit you. A Perry can hit you, and he likes it, and he can score goals.
What a series that would be in the second round, San Jose and Anaheim.
Oh, my.
But if you just look at San Jose and what we've seen from them this year, I mean, the bracket challenge they have on NHL.com where you just pick every team and you win some sort of car or something. I took San Jose to the Stanley Cup, partially because you want to be a little bit different. You don't want to just pick
I took
Pittsburgh.
Ducks.
Okay. That's different enough because everybody's taking Boston and Chicago. But the reason why is that San Jose can win so many different ways. And now Niemi's back there in net, and he looks like Antti Niemi.
He's settling in, yes.
LA's not out of the series.
Remember, too, last week, our question mark on this series, though,
was goaltending.
Was Niemi.
Because they hadn't named him a starter.
Right, and so now he's proving us wrong.
The goals against average for Jonathan Quick in 2011-12 in the playoffs, they win the Stanley Cup, 1.41 over 20 games. Last year, they make a nice run. They go to the Western Conference Finals. They lose to Chicago, 1.86 over 18 games. This year, 7.22. His goals against average is 7.22.
That's not going to win very many games.
It's not going to win any games. San Jose looks very impressive right now.
And I just don't understand why LA hasn't shown up. That boggles my mind.
I know that the Sharks had made a point of saying how they don't like the Kings, and it's not just the Northern-Southern California rivalry. I know that they were upset about the Dustin Brown hit on Thomas Hertl earlier in the year.
Yeah, Dustin Brown doesn't have a lot of friends.
He doesn't have any in San Jose, I can tell you that.
Right.
So they fell behind in that game 2-0 last night, and then when they got up 5-2, they just continued to pour it on because they just don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, for LA, you need the Kopitars and the Carters. Those guys have got to show up. And just prior to the playoffs, Jeff Carter, to me, was on fire. He was playing like I've never seen him play before.
It's not over. I wouldn't be shocked if LA wins the two in LA.
Well, they're coming. They're going home. They're going to the Staples Center. So we'll see what happens when LA plays at home.
You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @HockeyPodcast for even more hockey news.
#DoIt.
Final segment, news and notes. As we said last segment, do not read the comments on the internet, and then we spent the whole break reading comments on the internet.
Oh, people are so silly.
About this story.
Okay.
One that is very close to Doug's heart because, well, he just gets angry about it.
And he's a defenseman, and he angers me because he's a defenseman. Defensemen are not supposed to behave this way.
They're held to a higher standard of behavior.
Absolutely.
Anton Belov leaving the Edmonton Oilers for the KHL. Edmonton needs defensive help. They thought Belov was going to be a big piece of that. And
wrong answer.
The loud buzzer. He's out. He's going to the KHL. The exact quote was, "I didn't want to stay with that coach." That's like how you describe like a bug on your wall. I don't want to go near that.
Well, I hope that SKA St. Petersburg loves his -12.
I think it was -17. You're being polite now.
No, he had a -12.
Oh, okay, you're right.
Total of 34 PIMs. Played 57 games with the Oilers this year. His first year in the NHL, by the way.
And it would appear his last.
And his last.
So.
Look, if you're not happy and you don't get along with your coach, I know a lot of players that haven't got along with a coach, but you don't smudge your coach's name. You don't besmudge. Is that the word?
Besmirch.
Besmirch.
Besmudge is almost more insulting. I kind of like that. Like you just rub his name off the wall on the way out.
Listen, if you're unhappy, you're unhappy. That's fine, okay? And you say, you know what? I had a great time in the NHL. It's not for me. I've signed a 4-year deal with St. Petersburg. I'm going to go play in the KHL.
Could have easily said, that's where I'm from. That's my home. The NHL, like you said, just isn't the thing for me. I don't know how the NHL could possibly not be your thing, but that's not this debate.
And he's played 9 years in Russia before his single year in the NHL anyways. And it's like, dude, obviously it's just not a fit for you, but you don't have to put other people down. Just be cool about it. And it'd be different if he was an Erik Karlsson or a PK Subban that actually performs as a defenseman and actually does something on the ice. He really didn't do much.
Yeah, this just goes back to the same problem Edmonton's been having. They need to put themselves in a position somehow where they're a free agent destination, or, as we've said in the past, where they at least have stability. And this kind of flies in the face of that. I mean, you're kind of right. Like, he leaves and he goes to the KHL, whatever, that's your thing. But then to trash Dallas Eakins on the way out, let's just say Belov goes to the KHL and has a great year next year. You know Oilers fans are going to find out about that because Edmonton's not going to have a great year next year. And then if Edmonton's struggling, the fingers are going to be pointed at Dallas Eakins, and they're going to say, look, we had this guy, and he's gone because of Dallas Eakins. It might not even be his fault.
Well, and that's the other thing. So I read a lot of comments, and the fans are unhappy that Eakins got an extension. Whereas you and I discussed it, and we were going, well, that's the best thing that can happen to the team, is that finally that you're going to try to have some stability so that the players are used to a single system, a single coach. And if Belov was at least a little bit patient, he probably would be back on the roster.
Yeah, they offered him a contract. He didn't want it.
He's only 27, but you can't go to the KHL and come back to the NHL at 31 unless you have 4 spectacular years.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be Jaromir Jagr at that point.
You have to have the numbers, and usually defensemen don't have big offensive glowing numbers. A defenseman, a really, really good defenseman, you really have to watch. I take a Zbigniew Michalek, for example. He doesn't have huge offensive numbers, but he's a defenseman I'd sign any day on any roster.
Well, because he stops the other team from scoring, which is supposed to be your job.
Right. You're not there to be an offensive power. So, yeah, I made fun of his minus 12. That's here nor there. Go out with class.
Well, look, I did say Edmonton needs to find some stability in the front office and in the coach. You got all these young players. You can't keep switching. You can't get this sort of mentality of, I kind of don't like this coach, so we need to make another change or I'm leaving. You can't have that. Edmonton's fortunate this wasn't like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins or somebody doing this. But it's not like Dallas Eakins did a good job this year. They won 29 games. I just think you need more than 1 year. He's a young coach. It's all relative when you're a coach, but he's a relatively young coach trying to work with this young team. You got to give it more than one season.
Right.
Now, this is what Edmonton does have working in their favor, the 3rd pick in the draft this year, which in the past has done nothing at all for them. But
I mean, unless you sign another Nathan MacKinnon, your 3rd pick is going to go back to his junior team or his college team and develop. But the good thing for that young pick, that 3rd pick, is when he leaves that program, he knows the program he's coming to.
Yeah. Look, it never hurts to have a high pick. I mean, if you miss the playoffs, you want that high pick. We joke about the Oilers. They haven't really screwed up on these top picks. I mean, I guess Yakupov has been a bust, but everybody was going to take him at once. You can't fault him.
Wasn't a bust in his freshman year.
That's true.
He was a bust in his sophomore year, but he was probably a bust in his sophomore year because everybody was hammering on him.
Even when he was playing well, they hammered on him. Oh, I get it. You've been waiting to use that for an hour? You've been planning it out for 2 years, haven't you?
And he's a young guy. First of all,
unbelievable that you used that. Hammering on the nail.
He's in North America. He's out of his element. I mean, it's a second language. English is a second language for this kid. He performed very well in his freshman year. He's having a sophomore slump.
Yeah, but
I'm okay with that.
If you don't pull out of the sophomore slump,
but I'm okay
you
with
disappear. Gabriel Landeskog pulled out of his because he made a conscious effort. Matt Duchene
in his junior year,
he pulled out of it.
Yeah,
you got to pull out of it in your junior year.
Yeah, right. So we'll know next season.
But he's not in an environment that's going to make him a better. How are we talking about Neil Yakupov? This is not the point of this at all. Matt Duchene pulled out of his sophomore slump, and it made him a better player. I don't know if that's going to happen with Yakupov unless something is different next year. The draft lottery was this past week. Florida gets the number 1 pick. Buffalo will take the number 2 pick despite having the worst record. Edmonton gets 3.
I'm okay with that order.
Oh, good. They were going to run it by you and make sure you were going to sign off on it.
Well, I had a call into Gary Bettman. I said, look, just check with me before you finalize it.
New Jersey will be picking 30th. How do you feel about that?
Well, that makes me feel really good because the best part about the draft was that when they reach into the pot and they pull a team out, if New Jersey was the team pulled out for the first pick,
put it back in.
It goes back in.
It's like
because they're not allowed to have it.
It's like playing the Powerball, but everybody knows you cheated, so you can't win the Powerball. Right. 2 things on that. One, why don't they show them pull the names out? Like, when they used to show the lottery drawings, like, hey, look, there's number 16.
Well, they used to have the ping pong balls, remember, with the team logo on it.
How great would this be if they just hit the button and boom, there's
75.
They're not playing bingo.
But this is what it reminded me of.
If the Oilers had lost one more game this year, any of those games down the stretch where they suddenly started playing a little bit better, they would have had the second worst record, which would have given them Florida's ping pong balls, and Edmonton would have the first pick again if they had lost one more game.
See, that's just bad management.
See that? And that's why Anton Belov left. So we've been talking about playoffs, the new structure this year. Thoughts on that? Do you like the way it's setting up?
I love it. I mean, we just went through the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Every series has been far better than I expected it to be, other than the LA series. The LA series is the only one that's sitting sour with me.
Yeah, we kind of thought that was going to be the best series, and that's been the most entertaining. Well, one of the more entertaining, but it hasn't been the best by it.
But then again, Colorado went up 2-0. Sharks are going up 2-0. Let's wait till Game 3 and see what happens there. I think the new setup is working extremely well because you have the right teams. The wild card system is the best way to do it.
I do like this setup. The thing I didn't like about the old one was you win the Southeast Division. You have the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference.
And you have one of the worst records and you're in the playoffs.
But you're instantly the 3rd seed. You're not just in the playoffs.
Right.
So I didn't like that because I felt like I felt like the integrity of the matchups was being compromised. There was years where you had the 4 and the 5 seed playing. It really should have been the 3rd and the 4th. You missed 2nd by a point, and all of a sudden you're 4th and 5th, and you just shouldn't be playing in the first round. My one fear about the way that's set up now is I really like it this year, and I do like the wild card system. And if I was them, I would have done the same thing. But are we going to get to the point where we're seeing LA, San Jose in the first round every year? That's my one concern. Or whoever, Rangers, Flyers. Would you be shocked next year if the Metro Division was Pittsburgh in first, New York in second, Philadelphia in third?
I think attrition is the only thing that's going to solve that.
I just feel like we're going to see
if LA doesn't fix something quickly in this first round, you're going to see some off-season changes, and they might not make the playoffs next year because I don't think management's going to sit around and stick with the core team they have if they can't get out of the first round.
Well, okay, but whether it's LA, San Jose, or just whoever, when these 2-3 matchups are the ones that I'm worried. Like, I really think we're going to see Rangers, Flyers. I would almost predict that's a first-round series next year, too. Maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, but you're never going to see New York, Detroit in the first round, or whatever.
Well, the networks are not going to complain if they've got New York, Philly next season. And I thought it was very interesting that the triple header on Sunday were all East Coast teams.
Yeah, funny how that worked out.
On Easter Sunday, they were all East Coast teams.
And then they showed LA, San Jose, but I think I was the only one still watching after about the second period. That's it for episode 37. Join us next week as we wrap up round 1, or at least get close to it, and begin looking ahead to round 2.
And with the World Championship around the corner, we'll start looking at the teams in the tournament.
Plus whatever else happens in the next 7 days. Thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.